On today's show, I am joined by Richard Stayman of Locked On NBA Big Board to do a little bit of preview talk about the 2024 NBA Draft because it is the week of the lottery. Yes, the lottery is coming up on Sunday. It's time to preview it a little bit, and we'll get into all of that and more right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1709 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you here on a Monday evening in early May. And today's show is brought to you by the folks at Monopoly Go, the fast-paced game. Let you team up with your friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes. Download the Monopoly Go app right now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go. Also want to encourage you at the top of the podcast to make us your first listen each and every day. Please subscribe to the show and check us out anywhere you happen to get your podcasts. That includes Spotify, that includes Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube on the video side. And today's show is myself and Richard Stayman of Locked On NBA Big Board. Richard covers the NBA draft all year long. As a caveat, there was actually a hard out time-wise on this show, so we're a little bit of fast pace flying around with Richard on this episode, but still plenty of quality. This is actually just a one-parter in some respects. Usually if I have a guest on, it's going to be a little bit longer, but here we go with one part. And as a reminder, the NBA Draft Lottery is coming up on Sunday, so we'll have all kinds of draft talk after the lottery, but I'm trying to hold off a little bit more and getting sort of the full-on deep dives. The Hawks have a pretty wide range from number 1, if they get really lucky, down to 11 or 12 if they don't get very lucky in the coming days. So here's a little bit of a primer of sorts, talking about a lot of different guys in a short period of time that could be in play for the Hawks at pick number 10 or 11 or higher if they were to win the lottery. With that said, not a lot else going on in Hawks land as far as news is concerned. Workout should be starting up in the next couple of days in Atlanta of draft prospects, and then the entire league basically will go toward the lottery on Sunday, and then it's the combine, and we're off and running toward the NBA draft in 7 or 8 weeks from now. So stay tuned for all of that, and without any further delay, here's myself and Richard talking about the NBA draft. I'm joined now by Richard Stayman. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. It's good to be back. It's funny with the Mavs-Hawks rivalry all those years. It's nice to be now a summertime presence every year.
Yes, I'm appreciative of you being here. We'll get you in and out. But, look, it's lottery week as we're recording this. I haven't done a ton of draft yet. I'm going to do more draft coming up. I'm trying to see where the Hawks are going to land. They're probably going to be 10 or 11. That's the vast majority of the ping pong balls. But before we get to some Hawk stuff, I do want to ask you the question I've been asking everybody that's come on the podcast the last 3 months for draft stuff. What's your view of this draft class? Short version, I guess, but is it as bad as everybody thinks? Like the Hawks range, like how's this all looking?
Yeah, it's not good. There'll be some nice depth pieces. I think the best player in this draft has a good chance to come from the 10th plus pick, or really even outside of the lottery, depending on how teams ordered, just view the potential of this class. There's some nice role players. The star upside is extremely lacking.
Yeah, that's kind of my consensus too. Like, this is not, I don't cover the draft every day of the year like you do, but I do some draft stuff. And it's like, hey, my general take, I don't know if it's even acceptable by everybody, is like, once you get past the first few picks, it's fairly normal, I think. It might be a little bit worse than normal, but it's not like grave. The grave part's the top for me anyway. It's like I don't love anybody at the top. It feels like every spot I do a mock draft, it's like, oh, at number 2, it's like, this doesn't feel right to me. I don't like anybody. You're supposed to like somebody at the top,
Yeah, I mean, even if you just go to I think the most average draft class of the last 10 years, which it fares now towards the lower end, but if you compare it to the prior 10 years, this was considered an average class, and that was the 2015 class, which at the top was pretty decent. It had Cat, D'Lo, KP, and then you go down to 5 through 10. Just listen to these names and tell me this wouldn't be dissimilar this year. It's Mario Hezonja, Willie Cauley-Stein, Emmanuel Mudiay, Stanley Johnson, Frank Kaminsky, and Justice Winslow. That probably repeats itself this year.
Yeah, except for maybe there's more guys at the top you like. Anyway,
yeah.
It is what it is. There's not really a perfect scenario because we don't know where the Hawks are picking, but it feels like to me there's only one player in this class that I am extremely confident will be gone before the Hawks pick, and it's Alex Sarr. based on all of the intel. I'm not saying that he's a clear number one. Not everybody has him there, but given what the NBA sent back to teams about like their little mini tiers and stuff, he was number one on that list. He's number one or number two or number three on like almost everybody's list. And yeah, the Hawks can get lucky and win the lottery, but it feels like he's the only guy I'm like almost crossing off for the Hawks right now, unless they just actually win the thing. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah. He's really the only person I would say that's just he's going top three no matter what. At the very worst, probably top two on a worst case scenario.
Does that stack up for you? Just quickly on him. Do you like him?
I have him number one.
Okay. I'm leaning. I'm trying to be very soft on everything right now because I'm just not committed to anything. Part of that's the class. I have him there too, but I'm gonna make a pledge to the listeners that I won't do a ton of Alex Sarr until after the lottery, just in case, and then we'll know for sure if the Hawks win the lottery. We got to talk about Alex Sarr quite a bit. If they're up there, maybe we'll talk about it. If the Hawks are picking 10th, he will not be a prominent topic on this show. That's my guess.
Yeah, he's not making it to 10.
I don't believe he will either. But with that said, like I was in a mock that you did, community mock this week. I was surprised the player that it fell to me at 10, to be honest with you. It was Matas Buzelis. More of a split there, but we'll start with him, I suppose, because that's the guy I got in the most recent mock draft that you put together. I have him higher than that, and I thought I was pretty happy with that result. But what do you make of him? G League Ignite player, versatile forward. Like, what do you think of him, generally speaking?
Yeah, he's a good athlete. I think he has a better handle that's been given than is given credit for, especially given his age. I think that size, ability, athleticism combo is definitely there. He's a 6'10" kind of shot creator. He can definitely shoot, even though the percentages don't say it. I think that's something that'll eventually catch up. But my issue with him is, I mean, he's kind of like I don't buy the defense. I think he's contact averse. He just isn't that physical, and he doesn't like physicality. Those are my big holdbacks on him. But I do think if you're investing in a tall shooter, like this is the one you want to invest in, right? Like a guy who has the potential to grow his game entirely. It's the reason teams are pretty high on him as the top 5 prospect.
Yeah, I mean, he feels to me, I'm with you on film about like the lack of physicality, generally speaking. Like, he's very skinny. That's not the only reason why I'm saying that, but he is very skinny. I think he can get bigger. I do wonder about like, sometimes it can be overly simple about like physical toughness, but like, does he have that? Because like defensively, you could be long and versatile, but versatility only takes you so long. It takes you so far if you can't guard up and you can't be physical. So like that's my number one question too, just to back you up, especially for the Hawks. Like I like him. If he falls to 10, I would take him. It's fine with me. But like what they don't have on their roster right now is kind of like what he doesn't necessarily project to be a lock for him.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just looking at the roster itself, like you need somebody who's going to be that tough guy, and Matas just is not going to be that.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think he would work with Jalen Johnson, and we'll get into that more later on. But I do think that that's a name to at least circle. Candidly, I have a guy written down next. I was going to ask you. It's Stefon Castle, and then I'll tell you the truth. I don't really read this publication's draft stuff, but the Ringer put him number 1 on their draft board, and I got questions about that as of today. So he's number 1 on their board. That seems aggressive to me. But if that's in any way indicative, he probably won't be available for the Hawks. But anyway, if he is. Stefon Castle, UConn national champion, one and done guy. I like him quite a bit. I thought I liked him until I saw that ranking anyway.
Yeah, he's not the number 1 player. I really struggle to see a world where he becomes the number 1 player. I know I've talked to a couple scouts that aren't entirely sold. This is really preseason, but it's still something that hasn't changed entirely for them, which is he really a point guard? And if he's not, I think that is hugely detrimental. Like just look at Jarrett Culver just 5 years ago, who was the exact same thing where it's like, okay, awesome on defense, pretty good finisher. The shot, though, it's hard to buy. So I think the stats are a little bit more favorable to Castle, and he's a year younger. So that is a big key differentiator. But at the same time, like their games are similar. I really struggle to see a scenario where his upside is that good. I think he has a decent floor. Just again, that defense, the athleticism, the motor, all that, he'll probably fare better than Culver, but his archetype is pretty similar.
Yeah, I like Castle quite a bit. For me, the shooting is a swing skill. It's almost more so than whether he's a point guard or not. Especially, obviously, this is a Hawks podcast, but beyond the Hawks. But in Atlanta, he would have to be a point guard. But if he can shoot, I can totally buy all the outcomes. You know what I mean? I think I heard Sam Vecini say this recently. Like, if you knew the Castle could shoot, he would probably be number 1 for him. And like, I kind of understand that because like he checks. I'm not saying that's definitely the case, but I at least get it because that's my number 1 concern is like, does the shot work? But speaking of Culver, it didn't work. He couldn't make shots, and that was the death blow for him almost more than everything else. Is that all the other stuff didn't work if you couldn't shoot at all.
Yeah, and I mean with Castle, it's not just that like he's missing. There are times where he gets open jump shots and he doesn't touch rim. Like that to me is the alarming stuff. Like it's not air balls, but it's like it'll just go off the backboard, and it's inexcusable if you're trying to be a top pick. Like it's one thing if it was a one-off, like dang, it slipped out of your fingers. Like yeah, that happens. Like Tony Parker, a great free throw shooter, has one of the most all-time technical free throw gaffes ever, where it just goes 1 foot, whatever. You can excuse that, but with Castle, it is like a common occurrence, like a once-a-month thing, and that's where it gets alarming.
Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go, and I know you might be thinking about this, and I've already talked about them quite a bit in the past, but there's just so much to talk about and so much good stuff in the Monopoly Go game. You can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you actually work together to build each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes that you can unlock with Monopoly Go. And there's so much to get as well. That includes unique stickers where you can trade with friends to complete your albums for big prizes, and also get cool new land pieces that actually you can travel the boards with, or even hilarious emojis, which are always fun to taunt your friends when you smash into their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting each and every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton of that includes their only unique mini games, as well as digging for treasures or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events as well to help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you're looking for to win or rent your frenzies. There's always something fun to discover with the folks at Monopoly Go. Get off the bench now and download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. One more time, download it for free on Google Play or the App Store. It's game on with Monopoly Go. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's winner take all time now in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and right now, if you're a new customer, get $150 in terms of dollars in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 you can use to bet on hoops, baseball, hockey, and so much more. Bet all of your favorite baseball or basketball players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and much more. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is really easy to use. They have everything you're looking for across sports betting space, from over-unders to money lines to game props to player props, future bets, and much more. The app is safe, it's secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well. That includes the NBA and the NFL and college football, NHL. They have MLB, college baseball, college basketball, WNBA, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and much more. And now is a tremendous time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And the place to go is FanDuel.com/lockedon. One more time, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So this one might be quick because I'm not sure he's going to fall, because at one point he was getting lots of #1 buzz. What do you make of Zachary Ricochet? As I think it kind of cooled off a little bit. There was this like 2-week stretch where it's like he's #1, and it's like why is he #1? What do you make of him?
He's still #1 at some big spots. I mean, I think ESPN still has him #1. I cannot get there. I'm really high on his floor. I actually have him top 5. I think I have him right at 5. But he's there because of his floor. He's a 6'10", 3-and-D guy, and I really, really buy the defense. I think the defense is going to be incredible. The off-ball defense will translate smoothly. His shot, the way he can sprint and go full stop on a catch and shoot is really impressive, again, at that size. And just those two things alone, he doesn't need the ball skills. He's going to stick in the NBA. Like, that gets him into a starting lineup because there just aren't many 6'10" guys that are 3-and-D. Like Jabari Smith, kind of Maxi Kleba. And then also, he's not even, this guy doesn't really count because he does so much more. Like, this is so limiting to him, but it's Jaren Jackson. So that archetype really gets you on the floor very quickly. Like, all of those guys are playoff caliber players.
Yeah, and if you're the Hawks, like, you're looking for at least if it's me anyway. I shouldn't speak for what they're actually looking for just yet. But if it's me, whoever I pick, I'd like to have some defensive projection for that guy, given their weaknesses on this roster right now. And he definitely has it. To your point, the size, the length. Especially when you have a guy in Jalen Johnson at the other forward spot that can play both spots and do some stuff, like it opens up a lot of functionality for whoever you pick next to him. I guess the range could be wider because of what Jalen can do. And I think if nothing else, you'd have a ton of length with Ricochet and Jalen as your long-term forward combo. That would be pretty appetizing from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that fit into anything too. Like, that makes it, you can play Capella more easily. I think same way with the Kongwu. Like, it just fits from the top to bottom with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, if I had to guess, he's not going to be there if the Hawks stick in their range right now. I think someone will fall in love with him, and he goes before the Hawks pick in that 10-11 range if they're there. But worth noting, this next guy, I feel like has a kind of weirdly wide range for me, and that's Ron Holland. I've seen people that are really low on Ron Holland and then people that are really high on Ron Holland, and I kind of get the high side more than the low side personally for me. It felt like, speaking of the NBA thing that they released, like he was in that top 8 or 9, whatever it was, top 10 range they sent out. He was in that. He was on that list. I like Ron Holland. Coming into the year, he was probably near the top of a lot of people's boards. G League Ignite, people didn't watch. I'm not speaking for you, Richard, but I know a lot of people that don't follow the draft super closely have probably never seen Ron Holland or Miles Bazelis, because G League Ignite is like, you have to actually try to watch it. You know what I mean? But what do you think of Ron Holland overall, and also in Atlanta, where he is that, athletic two-way forward that not basically every team wants, but especially would be pretty interesting in Atlanta?
Yeah, I don't think he's 6'8" for what it's worth. I think he's going to measure at 6'6", which is a big difference.
Yeah.
I buy the slashing. The athleticism is there. The motor is really there too. He's going to stick in the league just because of those two things. Like, he can get to the remedies, and he can he can defend very well because of that motor. Like, he is in every single play, and as he gets stronger, I think he's going to be an even better defender. The jump shot needs work. There's touch, some mechanical stuff, I think, where a lot of inconsistencies, especially at the base. But right now, he's all tools. I mean, I've seen him. He's from Dallas, so I've gotten to see him over the few years, and I really do think, just in terms of raw talent, he's worth a top 5 pick. Like, I would not let him slide past 5. I don't care what deficiencies there are. He's workable. Again, that motor, the work ethic, things like that, I think he's going to overcome those weaknesses. But the fit with Atlanta gets a little bit rocky because he's not there yet. He's like a good slasher, but not a great decision maker. Can't really shoot. Defense, he still kind of fouls. There's some things that need to be ironed out with him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the shooting, because it's too simple to say shooting is a swing skill for every player, because it's true. But especially for someone like Holland, like if other stuff works, then you could probably get away with not being a great shooter if everything else works, because he is such a great athlete. Like you said, the motor is what it is. The intensity level he plays with is actually really appealing to me, and the physicality and the burst. But like, can he shoot, man? Like, do you think he can be a guy that has to be guarded is the only question I really care about. I
think not year 1, but if you get year 2, I think, yes, he has to be guarded. How efficient? I'm still struggling with that one.
Yeah, and the G League numbers were interesting. Like, he actually was productive box score wise at the G League level, but he was not efficient. So, like, it's funny. You might know this more than I do. I don't have it in front of me. For a lot of the season, or at least part of the season, Holland was shooting better from 3 than Modest was, like, percentage wise. And it was like, wait, what? Because obviously Modest is a better shooter. I think everybody agrees on that. It's just one of those things where, like, there's some noise in this sample size that isn't exactly huge for these guys.
Yeah, and a big part of it, I think, was that free throw percentage. I mean, Holland ended, I want to say I got to double check this, but I think it was like the mid 70s, which honestly, for a guy who can't shoot, if you're ending the season at 74%, it's really not that bad. Like, that's workable. No. And also in the G League, you only get 1 free throw. So, like, you're not, the sample size isn't that large either, which could go both ways, of course. But I think an optimistic approach would say, like, hey, maybe that actually could have been closer to 76, 77, which is a much more, again, just optimistic outlook for that.
Yeah, and I'm partial to Ron Holland. I think that he is a guy that, based on what I've seen, he actually could get to 10. He shouldn't. To your point, you said earlier, you take him, top 5-ish for you. For at least a mid-lottery guy for me. Like, if he's there at 10, go ahead and take him. I'd be excited about that. Good value and all that stuff. We'll see. The range needs to be a little bit wider based on, I can't remember who it was. Somebody's got him like, it might have been ESPN. Somebody has him like 13 or 14. And I was like, oh, that's interestingly low, in my opinion. Speaking of this kind of rangy two-way forward realm, what do you make of Cody Williams of Colorado? Just for everybody knows that it's not huge draft people. Like, he is the brother of Jalen Williams. That has to be said out loud in every podcast, Richard. He's the brother of Jalen Williams. That's a check the box. Didn't have a fantastic freshman season. Like, was not a huge part of Colorado. Like, he played for them quite a bit, but wasn't like, if you watched him in the tournament, like, he was not a key core type guy for them. He was on the court, but they had better players than him. What do you make of him? Because I feel like there's a big split with him as well.
Yeah, I think I get the appeal. Like, some of the stats look good. But if you run like in terms of counting stats, there's a couple things. One, I don't know if he would be as highly regarded if he was not Jalen Williams' brother. Like, yes. I do think there's some implicit bias with that, where it's like, okay, we know you're his brother. Like, could you be as good because Jalen Williams has been good? Like, I don't know if he was like some 15th, like AJ Lawson. I'm just using a random NBA player. If he was his brother, would you really be going like, oh, it's his brother, he's a lottery prospect? Like, that label drops. But once you break down his game, there's a few things that really stand out to me. He's purely defense right now. I just don't buy much of his offense. Like, the tools are cool that he does show some flashes on offense, but zero consistency. And I don't think he's a good decision maker off the dribble, which is a massive flaw for me. But on top of that, if you do like an advanced stat kind of run where it's comparing what he's done as a freshman to other first round, really top 20 picks, it's a really bad company. And that kind of scares me. I believe in a lot of that stuff. Like, he compares similarly to, Kevin Knox. There's a few other just that kind of caliber player, and that really scares me. Of course, he's different, but he also had a bad FIBA last summer. There's just a lot of negatives around him, and I'm skeptical.
Yeah, he was reasonably efficient this year at Colorado. His usage was not very big, which is a little bit interesting for me because, Colorado wasn't a bad team, but like some of these Kentucky guys, like, you're playing with a bunch of 5 stars. Like, it's at least understandable why your usage was what it was. It's kind of harder to see that at Colorado, even though that was a pretty good team. Again, that was a pretty good team, but still. I tend to, not to make it too simplistic, I do tend to wonder if he has received some extra helium based on the relationship there with his brother. And I get it. I mean, you can at least squint and see it. I understand why it's there. The tools are pretty appetizing. If you just look at the actual raw package, it's just like putting it all together. And I'm with you. What I've seen offensively is not particularly encouraging, in my opinion.
Yeah, he just doesn't separate. Like, there's just too much there where it's like, the NBA is impatient. I don't know if he's going to be worth it for a lot of teams.
I think he also averaged like pretty solidly more turnovers than assists this year. Speaking to your decision-making point, that's never a great stat. It doesn't mean you can't get past it. That's something I don't love that. I look there pretty quickly. I'm looking at my score. It's like, hey, that's you want to have more than that and not the other way around.
Yeah, and it shows on film too.
It does. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we just need a chance to get something off of our chest. Whether it's something big or small, stuff can actually start to get to you if you actually happen to allow that. It's smart to let that stuff out, especially as someone who is unbiased on your life as a listener. So today I want to tell you about how I feel about something. And for a few of you, you might have something that you understand in this comment. And that's that I have some unease about the next steps of the media industry right now. I'm not talking about the stuff around the Hawks, what's reported around the Hawks, whether there's actually going to be jobs, people like me in this industry. The work that I do in different ways will actually be able to sustain when it's talking about writing and about podcasting. Of course, not the most life-altering topic in the world for everybody, but therapy can be different for everyone as well. Most of us, including me, have bigger problems than stuff involving sports and media, but it is quite important. You can get stuff off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule, and the place to go is BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. One more time, the place to go is BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. It's never too late to show your mom some love this Mother's Day with DoorDash. Surprise mom with your flowers or gadgets or self-care essentials all in one place, delivered right to her door. Does your mom happen to have a sweet tooth, or is she a tech enthusiast? Is she a beauty connoisseur? Is she outdoorsy? No matter what she happens to be into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and much more. You can pair flowers with a gift card as well. She can celebrate any way she wants to, or if she prefers something else, try a bookstore or coffee shop gift card as well. You cannot go wrong with the folks at DoorDash. Get thoughtful gifts that you deserve with the convenience that you actually are looking for and that you definitely need. Choose same-day delivery or schedule a week ahead to have flowers and gifts delivered directly to her door with the folks at DoorDash. Shop with savings that may make her proud as well. With a Dash Pass membership, you'll save with a $0 delivery fee and reduce service fees on eligible orders from Dash Pass merchants that meet the minimum subtotal. Other fees, including service fee, apply. Get all of your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. One more of the forwards. Is it Chiwan? Is it Chiwan? How do you say his first name? Saloon.
I think you're asking the wrong person. I
butchered the same.
Every name. I think it's Tijon.
I'm good at writing names down and spelling things. Anyway,
yes,
he's another guy I have seen a very interesting, maybe more of a long-term bet. 6'9", 6'10", like 18 still years old right now. Very interesting forward who, again, at times has been listed in the top 5 for some people, or way farther down, and kind of again where the Hawks are. He's kind of that sweet middle where like he could easily be around at 10 or even later than that. And it is more of a long-term bet, but if you like it, I can sort of see that.
Yeah, so there's a few things with him. He's an He is the raw project. Like a lot of people are, I don't buy this whatsoever. I've seen this before, and I think it's died down now that he's kind of more struggled recently. In 2013, it was a terrible draft. There was a couple lottery tickets that everybody knows about that went late in the first round, and Rudy Gobert and then Giannis. I think a lot of people are high on him because he's that athletic lottery ticket that Giannis was. He's not Giannis, by the way, like not a comparison. But that's why I think a lot of people are buying into them. They're like, okay, well, if he's that lottery ticket, there was a lottery ticket that worked in a bad class. Maybe he could be the same. But if you look at his tape, I mean, he's been outplayed by several other prospects in the French league, where it's guys that aren't even really on many radars, like Armel Traore, for example, who should be on radars, but he's not like really considered a draft, like end of the second at best. But he's super athletic, extremely twitchy. He explodes well to the rim. Just everything regarding the athletic checking box like that you check, he checks everything. His shot is improved, but it's still very far away, and the defense is extremely rough. So you're gambling on within the next 3 years that somehow, like from year 2 to year 3, he takes that jump and figures out, okay, I'm going to use my tools to be a slasher, potentially shoot, so maybe 3-level score, and also be a lockdown defender. And that is a really high outcome. I just don't think it's very realistic.
Yeah. And, I always make the point, like, you don't draft for rookie seasons. Like, so this is a Hawks team, like, I'm sure you hear this from every fan base, but it's like they start penciling him in on the depth chart for the rookie season. It's like, that is not the point of this. Like, especially for most guys. I mean, sometimes a team will prioritize that later in the draft, or take an older guy or whatever. For me, I never think about it that way. It's like, what's this guy going to do for me in 2 or 3 years? He is, to your point, like maybe the long-term project of this entire potential lottery class. He's interesting to me. It wouldn't shock me if a team fell in love with him and took him 7 or 8 in this draft or whatever. He would be on my board for the Hawks. I'm not saying I'd take him at 10. There would be other guys that I'd like more than him, but I wouldn't shy away because of how raw he is, because he is raw. And you have to know that going in. You have to know it's a little bit risky, especially if this front office for the Hawks, not the most stable right now, probably. Like they're not the most proven. Like Pat Riley's not making this pick, or Sam Presti, that they don't have to care about a downside risk. Like if you take a guy at 10 and he busts out of the league, you look bad. But also it's maybe worth it for the upside.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. And there's a lot of instant gratification, I think, that a lot of people want from their rookies. Like, I mean, I'm a Magic fan. I see it with Jett Howard. People are like, why is Jett not playing? He's a bust. He's been in the G League. But that was the plan the entire time. Like, they didn't need him. Like, yeah, his skill set was needed, but he himself was not ready, and they can't rush it. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, you got to think beyond. It's always interesting when Orlando just lost, as we're talking recently, in Game 7 on Sunday, and it's like, well, they got nothing out of this pick and this pick, and it's like, well, yeah, these guys are rookies. Like this is the playoffs. You don't have to. I know some guys can play, like Derek Lively. You cover the Mavs, like he's playing helpful basketball in the playoffs, but most rookies are not helping you in the playoffs. Vast majority, I would say.
Yeah,
at least not very much.
What Christian Brown the other year, I think, was one
in a tiny role though. Like that's kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even if they are helping you, it's probably in like an 8th man energy role. Like that's what it's going to be. Anyway, I could do that for another half hour. We won't do that right now. Okay. I'm not mentioning any of the guards, the pure guards. Part of that's because it's the Hawks, and there's this uncertainty that I talked about in every podcast about what they're going to do with Trey and DeJounte, and they also drafted a guard last year in the draft who they like quite a bit, Kobe Buffkin. I'm not saying they're what they're going to do, and I'm not crossing these guys off, but I have a hard time talking about the trio of the 2 Kentucky guys, Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd, as well as Nikola Topic, with the Hawks, because I don't know what they would do if those guys fell to them, or any of them fell to them, especially someone like Dillingham, who's a pure point guard size player. I don't see how that's supposed to work in Atlanta. But while we're here, do you love any of those guys, or not like any of those guys? I'm not trying to treat. I'm only grouping them together because of position, but they're all very different players, obviously.
Yeah, I would say if the Hawks take one guard, like I could understand Dillingham because the uncertainty of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. If they end up going blank slate, like he's the guy you want, being that electric, just shot creator, 3-level scorer, all of that, like he has that ability. But I just don't see that outcome. I don't see that even scenario happening where the Hawks like try and bottom out. Like that's really the only way. And like
it'd be very hard to do
bottoming out, but like just throwing away their guards, like that just feels so extremely unlikely. Otherwise, I would say Reed Shepherd fits. I mean, Reed Shepherd will fit every single team. I don't care about the sides, the on-ball woes. That man is one of the smartest players in the draft. creates chaos one way or another. He always finds ways to get steals even when he shouldn't. And I think there is value to that. And he is the best. I think he's the best spot up shooter in the class.
Yeah, I like Reed Sheppard quite a bit. It's hard for me to unhear what I've heard from people with the Hawks about like their just general size concerns. Like they're just too small as a roster. And to add in was generously 6'2". Is that what we're talking? Maybe 6'3" at the absolute best with Reed Sheppard. I feel like they don't. It would surprise me if they wanted to go that route. Maybe they do, and I just maybe they just love the player. But yeah, I agree. He's the best fit with the current setup because he can play off the ball and do other things. Dillingham is the upside guy, which is interesting but it's like, yeah, if they decided between now and draft day they're going to definitely trade Trae Young, I would understand taking Rob Dillingham. I would get that.
Yep.
Even with DeJounte, I don't think he and DeJounte would be a great fit. But even if they just decided, okay, we're definitely moving Trae Young, I wouldn't decide that. But if they did, sure, Rob Dillingham, come on down. But unless they do that, I don't think you can take Rob Dillingham. I feel like it's kind of an either or there. Not that you want to compare him to Trae Young, but I just can't imagine taking him with Trae Young on the roster and Kobe Buffkin last year in the draft and everything.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think outside of, I have Sheppard in my top 5 and Dillingham right outside of it. Going forward, I loved Kobe Buffkin last year.
Me too.
I think I would take Kobe Buffkin as the guy. Like, that you already have him in-house. You don't have to do any new stuff with him. You have a full offseason. Just keep developing him. If you were going to take one, this is kind of – I'm not super high on this guy, but I do think he would fit the Hawks, and that's Devin Carter out of Providence. Monster on defense. And also, I think he's Anthony Carter's – son. It's going to make you feel old. It's son? I couldn't remember.
I believe that's right. I was reading something about him prepping for this podcast, but yeah, I think it's his son. They're definitely related.
Whatever makes you feel older, it always will be that. Like the next 3 years of high school basketball are going to make you feel so ridiculously old. So just beware.
I'm already there. And Topic is bigger, by the way. While we're here, he's got more size, but for me, he's a point guard. Like he's a point guard. That's why you're going to get him. For me, does that sound reasonable? I think he's more of an on-ball player than anything else. Yeah. He's got actually probably the best shooting indicators of the European guards or European really players, I would say, because the free throw percentage is way higher than I'd expected watching his jump shot. Like he just has a flat arc, and because of that, I just don't really think he's a spot up guy. But I do think he checks a lot of other boxes for me. No, I like him. I like him quite a bit. I just think I like him somewhere besides Atlanta more than I would like him in Atlanta.
Agreed.
Before I let you go, I would be remiss. There is a contingent of Hawks fan for sure, and I get why that is really all in about getting a center in this draft.
Okay.
I think Klingon's going to be gone. Pretty sure, unless they get in the top 4, Klingon will probably be gone before 10. We can mention him if you want to. I'll also throw out the names of Khalil Ware and Yves Missy, are popular Hawks Twitter people right now. Ware especially, because Ware's skill set is versatile and I get all that. Do you like any of the non-Klingon, non-SAR bigs in this class enough to consider it 10?
Yves Missy could be fine. I feel like he'd be really similar to what Capella does and has been doing for the last few years. I'm not sure how appealing a non-shooter is, but I mean, he is literally run and dunk and defend the rim. But I would not touch Khalil Ware. I every podcast I've come on, I've said
there's a big split, huge split. People like him a lot or don't like him at all.
Well, it's not even like, I think if you watch him, I get the appeal, but it has nothing to do with the tape. I mean, it's just intel. The intel is horrible. Every single person I've ever talked to that has any reputable sources or is a reputable source says the exact same thing. They all say he's a potential Larry Sanders, to put it nicely. That should scare the daylights out of you. Like I don't buy the motor. The motor is something that is never going to turn around, even though it kind of did at Indiana. But even in the Big Ten tournament, in the last game of their season, he was kind of not trying. Like how can you trust him to go out there in a playoff game for a team like the Hawks in a fourth quarter playoff game? Oh, he didn't get the ball 3 straight times. Now we don't know if he's going to defend the ball or defend the rim. That's going to scare teams. I would not want to be the team that touches him in the first round and give him a guaranteed contract.
Well, there you go. Hot takes to end this podcast. And I know you got to go. I'm going to beg you to come back later on. We'll do more of your sicko stuff because I know you are deep into it. The Hawks don't have a second round pick right now, which is like limiting me and like how deep I can go in this class. But I'm still going to do some shows between now and the draft on deeper sleepers, stuff like that. Yep. And I want to have you on to do that because I know you were. Did you go to Portsmouth?
Yeah, and then I'll be at the Combine next week.
the combine's more mainstream. If you're going to Portsmouth, that means you're a sicko. That's like written in the stars. I'm not. I mean, it's true. I'm like, it is what it is.
No, you're not wrong.
Well, I will beg you to come back when we have more time and more guys to get into. But I appreciate you doing this. Where can folks find all of your fine musings on the NBA draft and
on Instagram, or excuse me, Twitter, or whatever it's called now. Mavs Draft, like it says right here on YouTube. Instagram NBA Draft Film, but I'm not using that as much. Really, it's my Substack. It's just Mavs Draft Substack. So a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, check that out. I know. I think I saw you wrote up the community mock draft we just did that I was in. So we'll plug that again. That's on your Substack.
Yep. It was
Follow Richard. Yeah, it got off the. I picked early, and then as reference, I didn't have a pick again after 10. So I was like not following every pick. I looked after. I was like, man, there's some stuff that happened in this draft that I'm confused about. But hey, that's part of the fun of a mock draft. Thank you, Richard, for being here. I appreciate it. As for everybody else, please subscribe to this podcast, and we'll see you all next time.